Hi, we're back on LinkedIn Live. I'm Richard Mullen in the Industrial IoT Business Unit. And with me,
Samuel Pasquier. I'm the leader of Industrial Networking Product Management team here at Cisco.
And we're here to talk about the State of Industrial AI report that we are launching here in 2026.
But Richard, before we get there, let's rewind.
Yeah.
Why are we doing that? So 2 years ago, we did the State of Industrial Networking. We did a report. We talked to 1,000 customers. And we had amazing success, I would say, and meaning response from our customer. And we thought like, well, that was good. Now we need to raise the bar. We need to go what's next. And obviously 2 years ago, when we did it, everyone was talking about AI. AI was top of mind and so on. So we thought like, hey, let's do another report. The State of Industrial AI coming right now, and where we focus a little bit more about the usage, adoption of AI in industrial environment. So Richard, how did you do that this time?
Yeah, so we went out to 1,000 customers. And what's important is that we took breadth on two different fronts. One is global. So whether in the Americas, EMEA, APJC, Australia, New Zealand, we went out and surveyed exactly how AI is impacting these organizations and their operations. And then we also took a look across 20 different industries. And that's one of the things that we're really, we really celebrate internally, is just the breadth of the type of customers we have. So we've got a whole bunch of different types of practitioners out there in the industrial space weighing in on how AI is affecting us. It was 1,000 customers that we spoke to, and then Sapio Research compiled that survey for us, conducted it, and then brought the findings that we're going to review today.
So let's dive in, right? I think the first thing we wanted to know is, obviously, AI technology, can be a lot of different technology behind AI, and we know some of the customers have been doing a few things. So we thought we will ask what the state of the adoption, right? Yeah. And we were a little bit surprised by the result, Richard, right? What did you find out?
Well, I mean, just look at this chart. 61% of our customers are either have a broad deployment underway or have a mature scaled deployment that they're continuing to invest in. And just remember that AI really wasn't on the map until, in the public space 2 years ago. We had seen where customers were feeding elements into what we call automation. That's a trend that we've seen over the last, decade. But this is really accelerated with AI. So these are broad, mature deployments that we're seeing our customers undertake.
So, Richard, I'm an engineer at heart.
Yeah, indeed.
So when I saw that, I was like, okay, let's double click. What is AI? When we ask about that, what are our customers? Where is AI being adopted in industrial firm? And let's drill down a little bit to understand, what does it mean for the infrastructure? So the first thing we ask is, where are you using AI in our industrial firm? And this is the answer that we got from the 1,000 customers we talked to. A lot around process automation. So customer using technology to automate things. This is not something new, but going to the next level. It's about quality inspection, how to make sure the quality of the thing your product is perfect, raising the bar again. It's about supply chain optimization, and we can think about what it means there. It's about energy and sustainability. Optimize energy consumption, being able to predict things. And we have a few use cases that we're going to show you at the end of this talk. And worker safety, how to protect human, that has never been that important. And the last one that we start to see happening is robotics. Robotics is wrapping up. I know a lot of people have been talking about AI and robotics, and we see that, our customers are telling us about that.
Well, so, one point here on this slide that, that I'd like for the viewer to take a look at is that we don't see a wide disparity in adoption. These are really clustered very tightly together. And what we'll see when we talk through some of these use cases is these types of kind of operational needs in the organization, they really complement one another. Exactly. And we're seeing combinations that our customers are coming up with on these AI deployments.
Exactly. So once we ask where AI is being used, then the next question was, okay, but what are the critical technology to enable industrial AI? And here what we found that was very interesting, obviously robotics and automation, that's what, you need to make things move. Yeah. We are in a physical world at the end, so, it's not software. When you talk industrial, it's like real things that need to do and do things. So that was not surprising to see that at the top. The second one was very interesting, was AI vision system. And I share my personal experience, we've been talking and meeting with a lot of manufacturing customer. We had this automotive customer in Detroit telling us that over the last 3 years, they see a number of cameras in their plant increase by 30 to 40x. So more and more camera. We talk about quality inspection to be able to take picture of things, spot weld, assembly, to be able to do things and really change the way the world is actually, the physical world is captured. So we see that happening. Advanced sensor, edge computing that is coming up, wired and wireless connectivity. This one, I've been at Cisco 20 plus years, Richard. We think, we are biased at Cisco, we think network is easy.
Yeah.
And we think networking is, like, it's everyone has network. But actually, it's not the case. When we look into industrial AI, our customers are still telling us that wired and wireless is very critical for them, and it's not obvious that they have this connectivity that they need, and they still need to deploy that. So that's really what we saw around the technologies that are critical to enable industrial AI.
Those kind of fell into really 3 buckets. I mean, when you go through the report, you really kind of see it grouped into 3 areres. You want to talk a little bit about that and how we kind of think about that?
So we look at where is it deployed, the use case, the technologies that are critical, and that's what's really holding, what is the challenge?
Yeah.
And we'll summarize the challenge in 3 buckets. One is network readiness. I talk about this connectivity. Just in November, December, we were in Melbourne. We had BHP on stage with us. And one of the things mentioned by the customer was a connectivity. If you take a mine, for example, this is not that easy. This is not that. There's still a problem to solve the connectivity to be able to collect all the data that you have in your infrastructure. The second thing, the second trend, or let's say challenge that we see is around cybersecurity. Our customers have to connect more and more things, but they want to be able to trust the data that will come from those sensors, being able to make sure they don't lose control of the process that they are running on their plant. So cybersecurity is definitely top of mind. And the last one, I would say it's a human challenge. It's a workforce, because we live in a world that has more and more technologies, that is connect more and more things. The security is top of mind. And it's very hard to find the people who can understand it all, understand the OT space, understand the IT space, understand the IT technology in an OT context and what it does. So being able to solve the workforce challenge is actually very critical. Yes, a ton of people that are very talented, but at the end, it's always when you're trying to scale, is you are trying to hire the unicorn, and that is not always possible.
Yeah.
We know quite a few.
Yeah, but we know unicorns, but they're not that easy to find.
I think that the challenge that we are trying to solve at Cisco is how we help our customer to scale and have the IT and OT work together so they can improve the overall industrial tooling to be able to do that.
And the infrastructure can aid that. The infrastructure can be a solve in the way that we use AI, even though we're going to talk about that in a minute, but how we use AI with our toolbox, that's something that we can bring to the customers as well.
So we wanted to double click on those 3 buckets a little bit. And, so obviously we are networking, Cisco, people know us. And what we wanted to understand is when we think about your AI use case that you are deploying in industrial, what does it mean in terms of requirement on your industrial network? I'm biased. I'm product manager at heart as well. Yeah. We want to develop new product. We want to understand the trend. What do we need to plan for? And what we saw that was very interesting is, number one, reliable connectivity. Yeah. Right? That you need something that is working. It needs to work all the time.
Not injecting latency. Yeah, it's
so that's top of mind. We see a need for more bandwidth. We see all those cameras being connected. Obviously, that could generate more traffic. You talk about 4K camera, thousands of camera, where you used to have a very low bandwidth network to do just a little bit of control. Now you're using those network to send video, to send photos of things at very high speed. We were working with a camera vendor for automation. They do something like 4,000 photos a minute. Yeah. So you can imagine what it means on the network, right? So more bandwidth, also we see more need for, with all those cameras, more PoE device, which typically in industrial we have seen PoE for maybe the access point, the physical security, but now it's to connect assets that are actually in the automation process. And the last but not the least is really around, this wireless connectivity. Things are moving again. And it's not easy to move when you have a wire attached to you.
Yeah. Right? You don't have the freedom of motion that you normally like.
So reliable wireless connectivity is definitely one of the things that when our customers are looking to deploy those AI use case and workload, like that's a challenge for them on how they're going to be able to do that. So bottom line, those give us a lot of good, we have to do our homework now, but a lot of few ideas on where we need to invest and where we need to help our customer. We already started to, we did a lot of enhancement to our portfolio last year. Some of you may have seen what we've launched at Cisco Live US in 2025. We have way more coming for 2026, but that is guiding us on where
that's really our target.
And building our roadmap.
Yeah,
so let's talk about security, Richard.
Well, cybersecurity, it's not a surprise that it's almost 100%. So 98% of our customers are really saying that cybersecurity readiness is just universally cited. How am I protecting my intellectual property? How am I able to understand if I have a breach inside the network? And supporting really these AI solutions that are being implemented. And so customers also believe, so that's paramount, but then they also are saying that almost 85% are saying that AI can also help in how we're going to basically improve that security posture. AI can go in and detect and predict where I may have areas that are weak in what I'm going to, in my segmentation strategy, or just how I am protecting what's connected to what. But any kind of additional kind of insights that you have or what we're talking with customers? To
me, when I saw the 85% says that AI will improve cybersecurity posture, we agree.
Yeah.
And we have been developing tools in industrial security like cyber vision to provide visibility of the asset that you have in your infrastructure. We have customers that have more than 50,000 devices into their infrastructure. When we talk about visibility, it's nice, but when you see 50,000 devices, it's like you are looking for the needle in the haystack. Right. It's just too much. So our customers want to go towards more segmentation, so they can, limit the attack surface. They can, limit the spread and lateral movement. But to be able to do that, it's very complicated when you have so many devices. So we internally have used AI technology, like clustering technology, to be able to make sense of this huge amount of data, those 50,000 devices, being able to recommend what should be the segmentation policy, how you should regroup those assets together. So we definitely see that, and we are leveraging those AI technology to improve our tooling. And we have we've done a few announcements 2 weeks ago at Cisco Live Europe, and we are going to do way more in the next few months around that. So stay tuned. We'll have a few more things to share with you on that topic. And the last was, this IT-OT collaboration, like I mentioned at the beginning. I will say this one was a little bit surprising, Richard, because I've personally been in that space for more than 10 years. I remember 10 years ago, we are talking a lot to IT people. We come from Cisco. We are really, I would say, anchor with the IT portion of our customer. And we have seen the market evolving where OT is more and more working with IT. IT is more and more engaged. We see this collaboration happening. The good news is 57% of our customers are collaborating, and IT and OT are working together. That's the good news. Yeah. And it's a huge progress when we look on where we were 10 years ago. The thing we were genuinely expecting a little bit better is 43% of IT and OT teams still operate with no collaboration. Right. Which is an opportunity for us to continue to do a better job on that. But that's really what it is. So I think when we talk to a lot of our customers, the customer where those teams are working together, you can see that they are getting ready and geared, and they can adopt new technology maybe a little bit faster. Yeah. They can move a little bit with more, I would say, elasticity or a little bit more flexibility around those directions. So definitely something where we are investing on Cisco side to make those IT and OT teams work together. How it works for us is really about being able to leverage the same tools, right? Yeah. The tools that we have been building for years in the IT world, how do we make those tools applicable to the OT world? How do we make the OT personnel being able to use those tools? So again, at Cisco Live Europe, we just launched the notion of this assistant where you can do some level of troubleshooting of your infrastructure, industrial infrastructure, talking to the tool, writing to the tool in natural language. So it's a little bit easier. You don't need to be a CCIE or be a CLI expert to be able to ask questions about what is happening in the industrial network. So that's one of the things that we have seen. So Richard, we talked a lot. Let's go into maybe use case.
Well, that's always the best part, is hearing a little bit of, is sharing what our customers are really doing in the space. And I know how much you love cars. Yes. And Audi is just a natural starting point on
Yeah.
car. And it's really unlocked so many different types of trends that we've seen in this
I
project.
have to be careful which car I like because I like all the car.
Yeah.
Some of my customers have been trying to sell me a car, and I cannot buy a car from everyone. But let's start with Audi. You know what Audi has been doing is very interesting. We talk about AI in industrial environment, and the challenge that you will need with AI is you need more compute resources to be able to run things, more to be able to process things, and so on. And one of the main limitations is if your compute in your plant is running at the edge on the ruggedized equipment, then you are limited by the CPU and memory available in this equipment. So what Audi has done is virtualization of the plant floor. Taking the software running on the factory, put it that into, some will call it the local compute room or the local data center of the factory. So you can benefit from the virtualization technology to have this concept of elasticity of CPU, memory, storage, even GPU. And to be able to do that, you leverage a network and a fast, reliable network with redundancy to be able to move the control, move the PLC, virtualize into a data center. So that is fascinating. They are in production. They are scaling it out. Just recently, there was a ARC white paper that Audi authored, and we've done a blog post on it.
Yeah.
I encourage the audience to look at it in detail. It's very fascinating how the factory of the future will be a factory where you will have a virtually unlimited amount of software that can run with this elasticity provided by the compute technology. So fascinating. But Richard, that's a factory. Let's talk about...
Well, if you love cars, I love eating as well. I think we both share that.
I like eating as well. So tell us about vertical farming.
And, you know, the quality of the crops is so important that's going into your ingredients. And we have a customer in Italy, so Planet Farms, that is really redefining exactly how agriculture is going to work. So I first heard the term vertical farming, I think it was 6 months ago. I was like, what are we talking about? Well, this is a completely humanless agricultural setup that they've created in, or basically a warehouse in Italy. So vertical farming is touchless, so no humans inside the farm. This is a completely contained facility. They pressurize it, so there's no way that you can have bugs or anything get into the environment. And then you can apply the right amount of moisture, the right amount of water, the right amount of fertilizer, the right lighting. That's completely automated. So this is totally automated from seed to harvest of the agricultural process. And it requires a number of things. So one that you talked about a little bit earlier is just really a kind of a key ingredient is mobility. So in order to move things around inside their vertical farming setup is you have to be able to have mobility. Then you have to have an infrastructure that can withstand the wide variety in temperatures. They have both kind of cool and warm environments. Humidity is obviously going to be in play because we're watering all of our plants. And so you have to have an industrial infrastructure that can really support that. And then can also, to your point on connectivity, that you're driving connectivity both into our wireless APs and then also back into all the systems that they have that do all the monitoring. So all of that is really set on redefining how AI works on agriculture. And they use their AI models to really optimize what they're growing and being able to really yield out just best of breed produce.
I want to say I can see the audience, but I cannot really see the audience. People behind the screen. But, people will be like, why doing all of that, But the thing that is fascinating about that is really about physical AI, robots growing plants. But because, like you mentioned, it's like a pressurized environment, nothing can go and touch it, which means the first human to touch the plant is actually the one that's going to eat it. So you don't need to wash it, so it actually tastes better. And that, I think, is very fascinating. How technology is helping us to eat better and not having to wash the product. I think that's fascinating. So let's go. We went.
Well, you can't build the Audi factory. You can't build the Planet Farms facility without cement.
Yeah. So let's go into concrete. I don't know how we are doing this transition, but we are going for it. But concrete is a very interesting thing because, believe it or not, manufacturing concrete is very energy consuming. And we have this customer, Argos, one of the worldwide leader in cement manufacturing. So manufacturing cement. And the key is when you manufacture cement, Richard, is you have different ingredients that you take. you put that in the oven, then you need to test the quality of the cement. And do you know how you test the quality of the cement, Richard?
Don't you? I think you do like a number of different tests, let them cure over like 30 days or something. It's like it's a long period of time.
Literally, like you build cube of cement, let it cure, then you can compress it to see the resistance of the product. So you can imagine your process, and when you have to produce in batch, and then you have to wait 30 days to know the quality of your product. So what Argos has done is pretty fascinating, using a sensor instrument, being able to measure the quality, the humidity, the temperature of the ingredient they put in the kiln, right? They can optimize the power consumption of the kiln based on the ingredient, and they can predict the quality of the cement once it's going to be manufactured, so they don't have to wait 30 days. So it changed a lot of the process, huge optimization, huge saving in terms of power consumption, and better quality at the end. And all of that is possible with the infrastructure that you have to put in place. I know they are leveraging the network, leveraging Splunk technology to be able to predict. I mean, there's a lot of things that they have done that is actually fascinating. So I encourage you. We have a use case on that as well that is fascinating to read.
Well, it's really how much we see, even back on the slide about innovation and these broad adoption of these products, or these AI use cases. And there's just so much, whether it's the miner, whether it's the cement manufacturer, there's just so much innovation going on hey, how can we rethink how we work through our process and really bring data, bring AI to that. And that's exciting to see.
So key takeaway, maybe, Richard, we need to wrap it up. So first, what we see is investing into the infrastructure. What we see as a challenge, what we see as what is slowing it down. You want to make sure your industrial infrastructure, your industrial network is not the bottleneck on that. So you need to invest into that, investing into thinking about security with your network. We still see a lot of customers, they put a firewall at the top of their industrial infrastructure thinking they are protected. But there's still the remote access use case. There's still a lot of things that needs to happen. So you need to think about security as you design your industrial network. And having IT and OT working together, this partnership is critical. So obviously, we covered a little bit of the highlight of this report, but we have a full report that you can download. You have the QR code where you can find a little bit more reading. But most important, Richard, we talk about AI. We are not AI avatars,
yes,
right?
Yeah, absolutely. We're real people.
We are real people, and we love to talk. And we love to meet other humans and talk with you. So we are going to be live in person to a few events this year. You want to talk a little bit?
Indeed. We'll be at Cisco Live in Las Vegas, late May into early June. And so there we will have all the breakouts, the World of Solutions, the Industrial IoT Summits. And then we'll be back at Cisco Live Melbourne in November, in the early part of November, down in Melbourne, Australia, talking with our APJC, Australia, New Zealand customers.
And I have to say, obviously we want to democratize AI and people understanding of AI technologies, what it can do. So we have live demo where we really try to show the art of the possible. We're investing a lot. You've seen what we have launched at Cisco Live Europe just recently. We have way more coming at Cisco Live US. You will be amazed by what is coming. So please stay tuned, and we hope to see you in person very soon to engage and to talk a little bit more. So thank you for watching.
Absolutely, thank you.